Welcome to Centre Court with thanks to CRT. Farming starts with CRT. No matter where you live or what you farm, it starts with CRT. I'm Bianca Chatfield and Madi Brown is alongside me as we take you through what has been happening with the Constellation Cup, because since we were last on air with Centre Court, there's been another 2 games that happened. So let's get straight into the netball wrap and look at what happened in Game 2. The Diamonds lost Game 1. Game 2, when we look at it, another big defeat for the Diamonds, but what a game from the New Zealand Silver Ferns. They are absolutely dominant and winning Game 2, which took place in Auckland last Wednesday. And if we have a look at the team that Australian Diamonds put up, Madi Brown, this is where things to me get interesting, is the teams that we're seeing selected out of the 15 down to a 12 every single game. And this was Game 2. So there was no Horges, no Rudy Ellis and no Matilda Garrett in the 12. And of course, the starting 7 looked a little bit like this. What did you make of this starting 7 for the Game 2?
Yeah, well, obviously the 12 remained the same, but the starting 7 changed, as you said. And I thought, you know what, it was great to see a Jamie Lee Price in there. Last week I said, some players are playing in these positions. They're not in form, but we're still trying to figure out how to band-aid the situation and find positions for them on court. I liked that they made those changes. I guess, now looking back and having 2 games under our belt, you could look back and go, you know what, maybe it would have been the time to take the risk on some of those youngsters. Whilst the series was obviously very much in the balance, see what they can do over there, and then figure out going into Game 3, all right, I've seen my experience, I've seen my youngsters and newbies and debutants, what can they do? And then blending that to try and get the 12 for Game 3. I would have liked to have seen that risk rather than maybe having our hands forced into making those things because we were already 2 down. But I do respect Stacey Marinkovic in the fact that she is trying these things. And I think a lot of the questions are or should be pointed more at the playing group.
Yes, well, when we talk about the playing group, we'll get to that in a second, because there has been another game that happened. Obviously, they went from Auckland last Wednesday straight across to Perth, which for both teams would have been very exhausting, even just that process of the travel. And then over in Perth, that's when we thought, okay, Australian Diamonds might have lost the first 2 games, but is it on their own home soil where they'll be able to change things up and keep this Constellation Cup alive? Let's take a look at the scoreline from Game 3 that happened. It was an enormous performance from the Silver Ferns. We can't take away how excellent they were across the court. The pressure was on them. They would have just been as fatigued by the travel, and they were just phenomenal in every part of the court. The first half, the Diamonds, they stuck with them, and it looked like they'd found a way with the 7 that they used. And remember, this is where the team did change up. We had Georgie Horges make her debut. Rudy Ellis came into the side and got some court time up against Grace Nowicki. And of course, Matilda Garrett as well was into the 12. The 3 Vixens, Kate Maloney, Kira Austin and Jo Weston, were all sent to the secondary bench. What did you make of that call first up?
Well, I mean, I thought it was a big one, but as I said, I would have liked maybe that type of risk taken for Game 2 to see what they could do. Massive call. We saw Dwyer even get a start to see what she's like. As I said, I think the coaching staff have tried to make these things or like these changes happen to spark a little bit of, let's get back to the way that we play. But it's more so what's actually happening out on court, I think, and whether that is a directive from the coaches or whether it's something that, as I said, I think the playing group should be standing a little bit stronger about. You look at the turnovers, you look at all of the stats, and, from England series to the Con Cup for Australia, everything has dropped. Yeah. You look at the Silver Ferns from their series against England to their series against us now in the Con Cup. Absolutely, stepped up. They've learnt from those things. They've really, treasured the ball. They're getting better conversion. You can really see a shift in them. And I know there was, mental fatigue being thrown around. They've played as many games as us, and they've actually done it in a shorter period of time. So we've got to be a lot tougher, I think, in that space.
Yeah, I think it's been a bit of a shock to everybody out there to see the Diamonds performing the way that they have, because, we know that they can have a bad quarter or a bad half, even a bad game, but to continue to do that now 3 games in a row, which makes it all very exciting of what's going to happen tonight in Game 4 when that takes place. But before we get to that, let's take a look at all the substitutions that happened in that Game 3. Keep in mind, the Silver Ferns made no changes whatsoever. All of these substitutions happened all just within 1 game. And you're right, Stacey Marinkovic and Nicole Richardson, they're trying to find the right formula. They're giving players a go. If you were looking at what starting 7 that you would start with in Game 4, Maddie, who would you want out there on court to try and, I guess, salvage a little bit of respect out of this Constellation Cup? Because, you know, they can't win it now, and Silver Ferns have definitely earned the win.
Yeah, well, it's a hard one because, as I said, I think I'd like to see a blend in the 12. I'd like to have some of those youngsters. I think of Matilda Garrett, when she's come on, she's actually got some hand on ball. She deserves to definitely be in there. Give her a start, see what she can do against an Ekanasio. You know, maybe you start with a Cloud, put on that height. The mid-court, I mean, I still think Jamie Lee Price has probably had the best year in centre, even though her team didn't do well so much at the Giants. She needs to be in there. You definitely need your captain. She needs to be on there in that space. And in the circle, like, one thing they haven't tried is that real short moving circle. I mean, Callie Jackson has showed that she's great in the air. She's been, hunting for ball. Why don't we get back to that ball speed? I'd love to see maybe an Austin and a Dwyer in there, or, you know, what about an Austin and a Horges? Like,
that would be great.
Let's see the fast ball movement. We actually haven't got anything to lose, so you might as well try some different combinations that maybe have never been on international stage before. Let's see what they can do.
And I mean, 2 players to me that have been incredible, and not just necessarily what they're doing on court, but what they add to that Silver Ferns lineup. Amelia Ann Ekanasio has been such an impact in the way she's led her team, I think. And yes, Grace Nowicki is unbelievable and she's so great, but it's the way Ekanasio really makes the play out the front, you know, changes the tempo when they need to change the tempo up, and it allows Grace the space and time at the back to decide what she needs and when she needs the ball. And then Karen Berger up the other end of the court at goal defence. I mean, she's just a phenomenal athlete in that she's nowhere near the ball half the time, and her closing speed, the way she can go, get her hands to everything, she's just disruptive. I mean, as much as you want to be a pest as a goal defence, she is brilliant at that as well. And I think that's really thrown them in the defence end, in the attack end for the Diamonds too. So there's so much we can break down, there's so much we can analyse, but I think it's really important, Mads, that we get to your minute this week. What have you got for us?
Look, I mean, final time B, it's not the greatest Maddie's minute, and I wish I probably didn't have to talk about it, but I did want to, obviously there's been a lot of chat on social media about the way that the Diamonds performed and the way that they played. I mean, I sat back and watched it, and I must admit, as a former player, I didn't love the way that they went about it. I'm all for physical prowess and showing how good you are at that closing speed, that grinding it out. But to do it off the ball and to, you know, throw balls into players' backs, react to umpires, I just thought, where are the other players within that team or on that starting 7 going, we don't stand for this, we are not going to be, you know, stooping to this level. I just feel like we've lost our Australian way, and I just know that we don't play like that. That's not what we stand for. I think we've been physically beaten, mentally beaten, and the emotional control and composure that the Silver Ferns showed through amongst all that was thrown at them, they just continued to go to their processes, stick together, take some deep breaths. I was like, that's what we're known for. We're getting beaten at our own game. So I do think, as I said earlier, this is a playing group problem or issue that they need to resolve and go, where are we? What do we need to do? What do we stand for? And move forward there. We've kind of, like we said off air, lost that aura of excellence. Like, we need to get back to it because, what was shown in that Game 3, I was like, that's not sisters in arms. That's not the way the Diamonds play. You got to be gracious in winning, and you got to be gracious in defeat as well. And I just think some of those things need to be rectified, especially going into Game 4. Whilst there's one more opportunity to maybe gain that respect and integrity back from fans and supporters.
Yes, well, you talk about that one more opportunity. Let's get into our centre court deep dive, where we look more into Game 4 that is happening tonight. Okay. I want to pose a question to you. We know what it's like when you're a part of a team that might not be winning, and mentally it is really hard, isn't it, to get yourself up, especially players that might not have been in the team and they're trying to get their position on the court. Stacey Marinkovic, after Game 3 in her press conference, mentioned several times that the players are mentally fatigued. What do you do if you're a player fronting up to this Game 4 to try and get yourself into that right frame of mind? Because, you're only as good as your last or bad as your last game, and they're all going to go off onto their off season after this, and probably very well deserved off season. They really want to be putting on their best performance tonight as much as they can, regardless whether they can win the Constellation Cup or not. How do you do that as an athlete, get yourself up for these moments?
Well, I think, and even with players being in and out of the team, you've got to go back to what it means to play for the Diamonds, I think, and draw that motivation from that. You might be tired, but it is an honour to wear that dress. And every time you go out there, and I don't think that they're not trying. Of course they are. They're trying to find these answers, but you have to go back and connect with the people that you're playing with. You need to, go out for breakfast and bits and pieces like that. Really invest in the relationships that are within that team and the ones that maybe are closest to you within your unit on court, and get back to, we have 60 minutes for 2024 in this green and gold dress. There are so many athletes that would love the honour for even 60 minutes or 15 minutes. So, I think you've got to go back to, we're in a privileged position, regardless of the physical, the mental or emotional fatigue. You got to bring something else, because that's what it takes to be a world champion, and you're world champion. So play like it, because it is in there. You just got to get back to the winning ways, I think.
That's right. And we know so many of these players, don't we? They know how to win. They've been there before. They've been there when the pressure's been at its peak. And so this is just a different experience for them all. And I think you're right, that unit work and connecting, even if it's just the defenders, just getting together, having a bit of a laugh before they go out there on court. Finding those little things that you know about each other, that helps make each other tick and support each other in the moments that aren't working, but really important that they all stick so tight together. And that's what we know the Diamonds do really well in the face of adversity, and I really hope that's what we get to see.
Because the next generation of your Georgie Horges and, even a Matilda Garrett, they need to be showing the way what it's like winning and losing, and how this Diamonds outfit, works and evolves, gets better when they're challenged. I just don't want that opportunity to be lost, because I thought Georgie Horges gets her debut game. You want it to be special, and you want her to know that, we can get things done, and this is how we do it, because they are the next generation.
Yeah, so much sits in this, how they react in this situation, right? And I cannot wait to see how Game 4 plays out tonight. We have to say a big shout out also to the Aussie men, the Kelpies, for them winning the Trans-Tasman Cup. They've got one game again tonight against the Net Blacks, but they've been absolutely dominant. It's great to see the men's game going from strength to strength. They're certainly dominating for the Aussie team. Maddie, that's a wrap for Centre Court. A big thank you to you. A big thank you to all of our behind-the-scenes team here at SEN. And of course, thank you to CRT. Farming starts with CRT. No matter where you live or what you farm, it starts with CRT. We will see you again. You know what? I think it'll be in 2025.